Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Cooking Classic, the second installment. My name is Amber Redmond, and I'll be kind of guiding you through this evening's demonstration. I'm a two-time Penn State alum myself, and I'm really proud that you've taken some time out of your evening to join us. Just a heads up that we are recording this session, and we're fortunate to be presenting this as a proud partner of the Penn State Alumni Association, and the following colleges and Commonwealth campuses have also helped assist in this. Altoona, World Campus, Penn State Erie, the Barron College, College of Ag Sciences, the College of IST, Schreier Honors College, Schuylkill, College of Education, Harrisburg, and Abington. So some of you may have joined us last week for part one. We are doing a 4-part series where we're featuring a different theme each week. So if you didn't join us last week, make sure you check out the next two. But before we talk about tonight's presentation, we want to go ahead and acknowledge the hard work of the College of IST Student Org User Experience Professionals Association, or UXPA. They did some incredible work on creating the marketing materials for the Cooking Classic. They're really a top-notch project management organization, and we're so impressed with their professionalism and abilities. So thank you to UXPA. We're pleased to be offering this Cooking Classic series as a way to build awareness of the food insecurities that our students face. I'm pleased to share that we've already raised over $2,000 for the Lions Pantries across the Commonwealth, which is amazing. I'd like to take a moment though to welcome IST student Spencer Wallace. He is the president of the University Park Lions Pantry. So Spencer.
Hey everyone, my name is Spencer Wallace and I'm a senior here at Penn State in the College of IST. I'm a security and risk analysis major. And as Amber mentioned, I'm the president of the Lions Pantry here at University Park. So the Lions Pantry was founded in 2014 by a group of students, basically with the intention of addressing student hunger here at Penn State. Today we operate as a student-run food pantry for all Penn State University Park students. We simply ask that they show us their student ID, and then they have the ability to come visit the pantry, pick up any items, or have these items delivered to them as well. This can be toiletries, food, or any other essential items. We additionally interact with other departments and resources here at Penn State and in the local community, such as student care and advocacy, housing and food services, project care, and various other departments as well. As listed on the donation site below, the fight against food insecurity and numerous other issues is not just limited to Penn State University Park and our Lions Pantry. There's initiatives across all of the Penn State community and the Commonwealth campuses. So I encourage you all to look into those operations a little bit more. As a student-run organization, we're incredibly appreciative of your support and the College of IST support as well. Without it, we simply couldn't operate in the capacity that we do today. So I just thank you all for your time and your support and your generosity. And I'm going to pass it now back to Amber.
Thanks, Spencer. Kim did go ahead and post the giving link for the Lions Pantry in the chat. We want to thank you for any support that you can show. So now we're going to get into tonight's theme, which is cooking with tech, wings and things. We're going to learn how to perfect a smoked wing and sauce, and how to pair wings with a nice cold craft beer, and learn how to make a Penn State inspired cheese dip. So make sure you pay attention so that you can use these recipes at future tailgates or at the big game that we hopefully have coming up in the fall. Let's face it, we all do need some pointers on etiquette too. So when we're entertaining and attending events in person. As a note, if you do have questions during any of these segments, go ahead and post them in the Q&A box. It's a little easier for us to monitor that piece instead of the chat. We're going to try and get to as many questions as we can after each presenter is done with their segment. And then we'll also, as a note, be providing the recipes that are shared tonight in a follow-up email to you after tonight's event. So I'd like to welcome our first presenter for the evening, Josh Hoke. Josh has his BS in IST and his MPS in cybersecurity. He's a software engineer for a regional health insurance company that delivers innovative solutions to its members. In his spare time, he enjoys smoking food and is in the beginning stages of starting up his own smoked food business. When he's not smoking food, Josh enjoys hiking, trail running, tailgating, and cheering on the Nittany Lions. He also has a really fun side hobby or a business that he calls Hokey Smokey, hence his nickname. We'll let Josh share a bit more about that and his famous Lionbacker U smoked wings. Let's see those wings, Josh.
Thank you, Amber. Hello, everybody. My name's Joshua Hoke, as Amber alluded to. You're looking live from my kitchen here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. But just a little bit about the smoked wing recipe I'm going to be sharing with you guys here momentarily. About 5 years ago, my wife got me a smoker for my birthday, and I was pretty intimidated by it at first, I'm not going to lie. But once I realized, once I got the smoker seasoned and I started experimenting with different recipes, everything kind of started to click and fall into place. So that kind of brings me back full circle to this wing recipe I'm sharing with you guys. It's called Lionbacker U smoked wings. Took me about a year to perfect it and to get it to the point of where it's at. And now it's pretty much a staple at a tailgate or two each season whenever we have a large gathering or Super Bowl parties, whatever the case may be. So what I did for the sake of time, I already smoked the wings this past weekend, and they've just been chilling in our refrigerator, keeping cool, because it takes 1 to 2 hours for the wings to smoke and, cook. So that process is completed by turning the smoker on to 225 degrees. And I ended up smoking, it has a smoke flavor of pecan, apple, and hickory wood chips. So what I'm going to demonstrate for you guys here tonight is the sauce ingredients and what those ingredients are, and then putting that into the smoker, and then you guys can see a finished product too. So let me get my other device going here for you guys. So the sauce ingredients are apple butter. I typically like to use, grandma or great grandma's apple butter, but unfortunately we don't have any more of that right now. So we need to stock up. So I had to get, your generic brand, apple cider vinegar or apple cider if you have it, maple syrup, and then barbecue, just like a sweet honey barbecue sauce. It can be, you can go for a little spicier if that's your cup of tea as far as wings go. But what I did, I mixed all those ingredients together, and I kind of have them simmering here on the stovetop. And when these ingredients simmer, they start to let out a nice, aroma. And this sauce is starting to thicken up exactly the way that I like it for, these wings. And this is pretty much what makes this recipe, in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my I'm going to take a dozen of the already pre-smoked wings, and I'm just going to pour this sauce on these wings. So we got that there. I'm not going to use my hands for that because that is piping hot. So bear with me here while I kind of just get these wings all lathered up. Got a little sauce on my fingers there. And that's pretty tasty. So now what I'm going to do, I have to step outside so I can get this put in the smoker so you guys can see the finished product. So I'm just going to flip my screen here so you can see me. Don't mind our loud squeaky door. I apologize. Realize it might be a little difficult to see me out here, but I'm outside and I'm getting ready to put my smoked wings in the smoker with this sauce on. So I'm going to pop those in. And I have some that are already done so you guys can see the finished product. Let me get these back inside here. All right. So now I'm back inside and I have the finished product, the smoked wing finished product here. What I typically do is after I put the sauce on, and when I put the sauce on and lather the wings up, I put it back in the smoker for probably another 30 minutes. You obviously don't want to overcook the chicken. But a good gauge is when the internal temperature is 165 degrees Fahrenheit, or if you can kind of just pull it off the bone, that's pretty much when you know it's done. But in a nutshell, that's pretty much it for the Lionbacker U smoked wings. If anybody has any questions, put them in the chat, and I'll be glad to answer them. But with that being said, I'm going to pass it back to Amber. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Josh. We do have a couple questions. So the first question is, do you use equal proportions of the sauce ingredients when you're making the sauce?
I do not. We have the recipe for you, so I don't remember what the proportions are off the top of my head, but I can tell you that for the sauce, the apple butter is pretty much what makes that sauce pop. So the more of that you put in, the better. I think it's a quarter or a half a cup of apple butter, and then tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, a tablespoon of maple syrup, and then like a quarter cup of barbecue sauce. But you can play around with it if you want. That's kind of what I did to get it to what it's at now, and that's where I like it. That's where my friends and family like it. So, but you can play around with it, and like I said, you can add a spicier barbecue sauce if you want. It's really up to your crowd.
Awesome. We are getting a couple questions about if you can make them in an oven or what to do if you don't have a grill or a smoker. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, for those that don't know, a smoker is basically a glorified oven that adds a smoky flavor. So theoretically, you could do the same exact wing process, put it in your oven. You just wouldn't have that smoke flavor. I know there are liquid smoke options, which is something that you could do. I've personally never used them because I haven't found the need to, and I really enjoy, the real natural wood smoke flavor. But yeah, you could follow the same recipe, and instead of putting it in the smoker, you essentially, every time my recipe says do this in the smoker, put this in the smoker, you just put it in your oven. And the temperature, you could probably turn it up to 350 in an actual oven. They'll probably cook a little quicker. I don't know that ovens are as low as 225 degrees, so that might be the only alteration really that you would have to kind of fiddle around with.
Great. So we have a couple more questions, but a lot of people are asking that we send samples before these events. So it's something to look forward to for the next two. One other question is, someone wants to know if you use season or dry rub before you smoke your wings.
Yes, I apologize. I did miss that. So I I make my own dry rub, and I don't know I kind of just dump stuff in, so I don't know the portions, but I do have it all spelled out actually in the actual recipe that I sent the folks running the show tonight. But at a high level, I use brown sugar, garlic powder, chili powder, salt, pepper, a little bit of cayenne. You can add more cayenne again if you like spice on your wings, and then cinnamon. I think the cinnamon and the apple butter is what really makes this entire recipe pop.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. It's like a sweet, and then it goes with the spicy kind of sauce. So I bet that does pair really well.
Exactly.
I got a couple more questions. So Tim wants to know, at what internal temp do you pull the wings off the smoker to go ahead and put your sauce on?
Since a chicken wing is typically done at 165 degrees internal temp. So what I do, since I do put them back in the smoker after I apply the sauce, I typically pull them out about 155, maybe 160. But at that point, you're kind of starting to push the limit a little bit, because again, you don't want to keep them in there too long. They could dry out, whatever. We don't want that. So I would say somewhere between 150 and 160, pull them out, put the sauce on, lather the wings up with the sauce, and then you can put them back in until they get to that internal temperature of 165 degrees.
Great. This is actually an interesting question. So what do you wish you'd known whenever you got your first smoker?
I guess I wish I knew how much fun it was, because as I alluded to at the beginning when I kind of told you guys my story, how it all started, I was honestly really intimidated. And when I was doing my own research on what needed to be done, I'm like, man, this seems like so much work. Like, why would my wife get me this smoker, you know? But I've grown to love and appreciate it, and I've done that to the point where, you know, I'm starting to create my own little mini side business on the side called Hokey Smoky. And unfortunately, I don't have any socials or social media sites and stuff right now, and or website. That stuff's all kind of in the works, but you know, baby steps right now. So I guess I just wish I knew how much fun it was, because I probably would have had one like 10 years ago, right after I graduated from college, instead of just a few years ago. But better late than never. I'm super thankful my wife got this for me, and I'm honestly hoping to upgrade smokers here probably in the next couple of years. So we'll see what I have in store for that.
You're definitely going to need to upgrade if you get going with the business, for sure.
Yeah.
We have a couple questions about whether you cover the pan with the foil, and then if the wings come out crispy, like does the foil help keep them crispy, or kind of speak to both of those, I guess.
Yeah. So with the, I typically use a 9x13 tin foil pan because it's just easiest. I just put the wings in there, pour the sauce on, and kind of lather the wings up like I alluded to. And then I don't cover them with tin foil. You can certainly do that because the steam will help kind of cook them quicker. But I feel like at that point they could become too tender. But some people might like that, which is totally fine. I know typically some of my family members, when they do put wings in the oven, they cover them up with tin foil. So, you know, it's basically like a lot of moisture and everything is assisting with cooking them. But as far as getting them crispy, which I'm glad that question was asked, because it was just another point that I forgot to get to at the end here. If you want to cook these on a Friday night or a Thursday night before you head up to State College tailgate, you can do that. Again, tinfoil pan, that's how I transport them. And then if you want to get like a nice little crisp or a char on the chicken wing, you can just put them right on the grill or the griddle, whatever it is that you got out at your big tailgate. If you want to keep them in the same tinfoil pan and just put them on that grill or the griddle, that's totally fine too. Typically what I do is I do cover them up with tinfoil then, because a lot of times it's like October, November, it's 30 degrees, and you know, they're sitting on ice anyway, so they're going to be freezing cold. So I want these wings to be I want them to be warmed up as quickly as possible so people can start enjoying them during the tailgate.
Awesome. So we are kind of at time, but one question was if you could show a close-up of the wings again for everyone.
Yeah, sure thing. Let me turn my camera on here. Here. It's nice how the sauce kind of glistens on there, and the sauce actually thickens up when you put it back in the smoker, when you put the wings back in the smoker with the sauce on, that's what I personally like in my wings, as a nice sauce that kind of sticks to the wing and sticks to your fingers.
They look delicious, and you're probably making us all hungry.
I hope so.
Yeah. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to another College of IST alumnus, Briley Marchetti. Briley's a 2016 grad with a focus in design and development and a minor in security risk assessment. At Penn State, he was involved with the IST student government as well as the Information Assurance Club. Briley aids companies in technology transformations to simplify processes and increase efficiency. He also recently became a new member of the IST Alumni Society Board, and he's looking forward to serving in that capacity. Briley's here to share some craft beers that are great for winter and would be a wonderful complement to Josh's Wings. So as Briley's sharing, go ahead and post any questions that you have in the Q&A box, and we'll get to those after Briley's portion. So Briley, take it away.
Sure. Thank you so much, Amber. I really appreciate the introduction there. And I think I will agree with you on the comment that you made regarding Josh's Wings making everybody hungry. I haven't eaten yet, and it's gonna be showing, but hopefully everything goes well here. So a little bit about myself and how I kind of got, I guess, selected to do a beer presentation tonight on our Cooking Classic. So starting when I was very young, a lot of my family was always into craft beer, and I think this dates back to a time when Molson Triple X was a very popular beer. You can only get it from Canada. Those kind of things were kind of how like my whole family kind of started, getting into beer, drinking beer, and those sort of things. Then, going to Penn State, I ended up with a internship in Hershey, Pennsylvania, where I was able to, learn about Trogs. Trogs kind of has evolved into one of my favorite breweries over the time period. And I grew up only an hour and a half or so away from Hershey, and I think it's only maybe 2 to 3 hours away from State College as well. So it was a good experience all in all there. Subsequently to that, after being 21 and all, I was fortunate enough to take a trip with my girlfriend out to Colorado for 2 weeks to visit friends and family. We were actually able to visit 9 breweries for the 2 weeks that we were there, do a bunch of tours, do a bunch of tastings, and really, get to experience what the beer life was like. Being a Pennsylvania native, it was just kind of hilarious as we went on there. People kept telling us that we came from Yingling country. And back in, I guess it was maybe 2015 or 2016, we never knew that that was going to be the case. But, in 2020, now you can go through and get your Yingling, I guess, most states now. So kind of a little bit of a pivot there for us. Most recently, what we've had, and as part of my family as well, to kind of continue the whole beer tradition that we're kind of starting. My brothers and I started doing a case swap. So every Christmas, instead of buying each other gifts or anything like that, we all pitch it, or we all buy our own case from $30 to $60, and everybody goes home with a 6-pack of each other's beer. And actually, 2 of those beers from this year I have selected to present to everybody tonight, because based on the timing of that, it is always winter, and some of these beers are even I guess, early spring beer as well. So with that being said, I'll start getting into it here. I apologize if you can't see me, but I'm going to be opening the beer, pouring it here just to give everybody a shot of what it looks like as we go through. For those of you who try beer at home, I would 100% recommend making sure that you always clean a glass fairly freshly, and also cooling it down with a fresh spritz of water before you do it. And you clean the glass and make sure there isn't any dust there as well. Secondly, in which this is going to be difficult for me, but I would always recommend trying to pour your beer with approximately 1 to 2 inches of head or foam at the top, and that will essentially allow all the aromatics from the beer to be, forefront for you. So looking at, I think some of the research is kind of questionable, or maybe the specific number, but approximately 75 to 80% of what you actually taste is actually going to come through your scent. So having those aromatics up front is definitely going to be a very helpful item, and will help you start to enjoy the beer. So that being said, I did give a little nod to Trogs here, and I'm going to start with the Trogs beer, which I would imagine a lot of Pennsylvania folks may be familiar with, but that is Trogs Nugget Nectar. So Trogs Nugget Nectar is an imperial amber ale. Sorry, as I try to struggle to open this. It is Imperial Amber Ale that comes in at 7.5% alcohol. And this is some extremely great artwork that they've done. And additionally, for those of you who may know, this does come in at 93 IBUs, and Trogs is kind enough to label that all on the bottle for us, which that means that's international bitterness units, which can kind of dictate approximately how bitter the beer is going to be. The higher that number is, the more bitter it could be. However, based on the brewing process and so on and so forth, I'll stop pouring there. But based on the brewing process, there could be some variation into how those flavors actually come into play. And I think that's one of the, I guess, coolest things about brewing and enjoying beer. So this guy here, this Nugget Nectar, pours a really dark orange, maybe strawberry orange, depending, and I apologize the light. But yep, Trogs Classic. But really nice bodied beer here. And I think, you know, the color is pretty perfect. This is it, very clear. It's a filtered beer, and one of my favorites. Additionally, I'll take a sip so to cover that. Perfect. Sorry, it's one of my favorites. So this is, I'll keep it in front for safekeeping, but this is dry hopped, which means they add dry hop flour to the brewing cycle or the brewing process, and it helps add a little bit of aromatics in the front. So unfortunately, we can't share the smell with everybody, but this thing is very in my face right now. Additionally, a lot of the scent and flavor that comes out of the Nugget Nectar is pine, orange, some citrus-like fruits, and I think that's actually a common theme across the beers that I selected. That is one of my favorite flavor profiles. But again, like I mentioned before, there is a lot of variation based on the brewing process. Additional things to note, I guess, just generally on Nugget Nectar, you know, pine, hoppy, well finished, a little bit of fruit flavor towards the end, but not overly juicy like one of these other ones is a little bit more juice forward. You can find Trogs Nugget Nectar for January. Most of February, I believe you'll still see it in stores, and it's available 12-ounce bottles, cans, as well as 16-ounce cans as well. So with that, I will move on to the second beer selection, kind of staying native to Pennsylvania here. For those of you who can see this, we are going to the Victory Dirt Wolf Double IPA. I'm seeing some nods, but this is brewed out of Downingtown, Pennsylvania, which I think, oh geez, foaming. All right. All right, that was an unprepared, unrehearsed situation. But so I'll bring that out after it's done foaming. This beer, the Dirt Wolf Double IPA, comes in at about 8.7% alcohol. So there is a little bit more alcohol than what there is in the Trogs Nugget Nectar. And it comes in right around the same bitterness, at least by the scale of bitterness units, at about 85. When we say that it's a double IPA, we are referring to what it is called an Imperial IPA. So a little bit bolder, maybe a little bit more hop forward than some of the traditional IPAs on either the West Coast or the East Coast. Once it's done foaming, I promise to pour some for you so you can see the color. But what I'll do now, in the meantime, I'm kind of on the fly here. The flavor a little bit similar to Nugget Nectar, but it's a little bit more hoppy, a little bit more earthy, broader depth. And then on the finish of the beer, or the finish of each sip or drink, it's very juice forward. So it's very fruity, very flavorful, very citrusy, similar to that piney citrusiness that I mentioned before. So what I'll do now, so everybody can see the color and the body of this beer, hopefully I can pour it with the amount of head that I mentioned before as a recommendation. And nope, absolutely not. So as you can see here, overdid the head a little bit, but that's not going to deter us too much. This beer is a little bit more golden in color, and maybe, I guess you can call it a little bit more yellow or strong there. This beer specifically is unfiltered, so you will see a little bit of sediment in each pour, but that's completely natural for some of the brewing that has been completed. So similarly, yeah, it's a good beer, and I think it really matches in that flavor profile that I mentioned here. This beer, unlike Nugget Nectar, as well as my third beer, which I will introduce in a minute, is available, I think, in 12-ounce bottles, cans, as well as 16-ounce cans, depending on where you are. And yeah, I might as well. Yep, a little bit of piney, a little bit of earthy on the front with a nice juice finish there. So again, another recommendation. And if you are, interested in any beer whatsoever, I mean, I'd recommend just getting out there and giving everything you can a try. Find out what you like and find out what may intrigue you and your palate, or even the family. Thirdly, I am getting out of Pennsylvania here, and we are going to Elysian Brewing. Elysian is based out of Seattle, Washington, and they were recently acquired by Anheuser-Busch, so they're generally available pretty much everywhere in the US. This beer specifically, which is not foaming on me, perfect, is the Elysian Bifrost. This is a winter warmer or winter ale. Again, somewhat comparable to the flavor profile that I have. It does have just about the same alcohol per volume that Nugget Nectar as well as Dirt Wolf does. It's about 8.3% if I remember my numbers correctly. Similarly, IBUs, or actually dissimilarly, IBUs have dropped down a little bit into the 50s or high 50s, low 60s on this one. So in that case, a little bit less hoppy, a little bit less in your face or pungent potentially, depending on what you are into. Now this is also one of the beers that I did receive in the case swap this year, and I'll try to pour this a little bit neatly here. All right, so there it is here with a little bit less foam than the last one, and you can see on this one it is a little bit more strawberry compared to the Dirt Wolf. And what I'll do at the end here is I'll pull them all in, but this beer being a winter warmer is a little bit I guess a little bit more on the nutty side, a little bit more on the malty side. So it covers kind of that, I'm wrapped up in a blanket and on my basement couch watching TV, right? Perfect for the winter season. Yeah, I mean, pine, nuttiness, a little bit of maltiness, still some citrus throughout the entire taste. And I think this is probably as close to one of the standard winter ales that you could have out right now. Unfortunately, this Elysian Bifrost is seasonal, so you can only get it during the winter. And if it is available anywhere, I would recommend picking up a 6-pack or anything on like that. Now, for the taste, yep, still similar, a little bit more pine on the finish, and it's just a great beer. Honestly, when you drink the Bifrost, you can barely taste any of the, it doesn't even seem like a heavy beer or an alcoholic or a high alcoholic beer, but it really comes out. So what I'll do is I'll adjust my camera here so you can see some of the flavors or the color differences that we have. So on my right, which I think may be screen left or screen right, I'm not sure, but this one, this is the Bifrost. So you see it kind of is that darker, more rosy color, while the Dirt Wolf Double IPA from Victory is a little bit more golden or yellow in color. And then the Nugget Nectar that we tried first is on this hand, and it is a little bit darker, and it is definitely a little bit clearer from the Bifrost that we just opened. So with that, those are my 3 recommendations for beers for the winter, either the winter or the early spring, with the Nugget Nectar being a January, February seasonal. My recommendations to everybody, as some of you may not be necessarily beer aficionados and maybe want to get into tasting beer, just go out and try a second beer, third beer, fourth beer, and just kind of get a feel for what flavors you like, identify what those maybe specific hops could be, and then try to find other beers in that lane and see what you can be favorite with. With that, well, those are all my final recommendations. Amber, back to you.
Thanks, Briley. We do have a couple questions for you that came in. The first one, though, it's kind of a request. So you have your 3 glasses lined out there. Could you put the bottles next to each one so that they can kind of compare?
Yes, absolutely. So like I mentioned, and I'll try to do this as neatly as possible. I didn't plan to to totally change the space, but so this one would be Nugget Nectar, Victory on the left or in the middle, and this is, yep, this is the order. So like I said, Nugget Nectar over here with the clear ambered body, with the Dirt Wolf IPA in the middle, which is more of a golden ale or a golden color and a little bit maybe more yellow, while the Bifrost, the Elysian on this side, honestly, based on how I'm looking at it, this could fall right in the middle of the color of these for reference.
Awesome. A couple other questions. So it's kind of related to Josh's piece. What's your favorite beer to drink with smoked wings?
So I haven't had Josh's smoked wings, which I guess, Josh, we're gonna have to link up and iron that out while we're here, or maybe after the fact, I guess would be more appropriate. But out of these three, I think, you know, depending on how spicy maybe Josh went, I don't know. It's tough for me, but I think the Nugget Nectar is very well rounded and will be likely complementary of some of those flavors that are in the apple butter and maybe the apricot like flavors.
Very cool. A couple other questions have come in, but I know we're kind of running short on time. So kind of lead it up with, or kind of end it with this one, which I'm curious about too. Do you do any of your own brewing?
So that's an awesome question. Currently, I do not. I am interested in doing some home brewing in the future, though. I mean, with great beers like this, it's almost like you don't have to some extent, but definitely more interested to learn about the process in the future.
Awesome. I did want to say there are questions that are coming in the Q&A piece, and we are going to try and track those and get back to you in an email just so that we can kind of keep on time and don't keep you here past 8. So thank you so much for that description of the craft beers. I actually learned a lot because I don't know very much about craft beers. So that was good and informative for me. We're kind of going to shift gears now. Continuing with our theme though, we have Rita Griffith, who works for the College of IST in the Office of Career Solutions. She's the Assistant Director for Student Professional Development. Rita's been in the College of IST for almost 11 years. She's worked with hundreds of students to build up their resumes, prepare for interviews, create their LinkedIn profiles, and ultimately find their confidence in transitioning from college to career. She's an advisor for the women in IST and also helps to train the college's diplomats. So while not a PSU alum herself, she feels personally invested in student success, and she'll cheer on the Nittany Lions for years to come. She has 2 children currently attending Penn State and serving in the Blue Band. Her son was a drum major this year, and her husband is an alumnus twice. So her favorite bit of advice is, you've got this. And one of the areas she's helped students with is etiquette. It's always a challenge to remember which cup is mine and how to eat wings at a work function. So Rita's going to share a couple tips. And again, if you have any questions for her, you can go ahead and post those in the Q&A and we'll try and get those answered.
Thanks, Amber. It's a lot of fun to be here tonight, mostly because it's great to see students who've graduated and to see what their journey is and to see some of these interesting sidelines that they have gotten involved in. I don't recommend, or I don't qualify myself as an etiquette expert, that's for sure. And I'm sure that if you think a little bit, you can remember back to those dining etiquette experiences in the pre-COVID days when students would get dressed up and they would put on all their suits and ties and fancy dresses and they go to the Nittany Lion Inn. A little bit of bribery there, right? It's going to be a great meal. We need you all to attend. Come on, come on, come on. And we would try to figure out how to take care of salads that had olives with pits, or how do you eat chicken on the bone on your plate, or what do you do if there's something on the table that you would rather not eat. If you have any memories from those etiquette dinners, go ahead and pop them in the chat. I would love to see. Every time I attended I had at least one takeaway, if not two. I know that Kim was joking with me earlier. She's like, I never know which cup is mine to drink from. And so my tip that I always remember is the B and the D. So if you just look at your hands in front of you, your bread plate is where your B is, and your drink is right there on your right where your D is. So that's just my little quick fancy tip. But with that being said, we're not fancy tonight by any stretch of the imagination. This is relaxed, and the casual gatherings that we get together, there's still some rules, right? There's still some like, oh my gosh, what do I do in this situation? So with that, I'm going to pop up a PowerPoint and invite you again to just keep engaged in the chat. And because I'm looking at my PowerPoint now, anybody that wants to chime in with the responses that we're getting, that's just fine. So again, this is a memory of those days of your dining etiquette dinners. But what about casual dinners, right? What about the casual get together for drinks at the local sports pub? Well, which actually isn't happening right now either, or the tailgates, or the Super Bowl parties, or things like that. When you see all of the food on the table, you know, a lot of questions come to mind. Is it okay to pick it up and eat it with my fingers? How do I get it off of the plate? What do I do when I'm done with the wings? Well, is it okay to eat with your fingers? What do you think? Go ahead and pop in the chat. It's okay, all the time, never. What do you think? So I'm going to ask Kim, are the responses popping in there?
Looks like someone said sometimes. It depends on the situations. And if it's like a finger food, it's okay to eat it with your fingers. So chicken wings would be okay.
Okay.
And then someone's saying at a Super Bowl party, anything goes.
This is true. So that's pretty much does run the gambit, right? There aren't a lot of hard rules. And to be honest, there are times when picking up the food and eating it with your fingers is okay. And there's other times when it's not. And a lot of the research that I was doing for this specific kind of casual dining, the rule of thumb is follow the host or hostess. So if they're picking up food and eating it with their fingers, then the general consensus is it's okay. Keeping in mind that for some dining etiquette rules, I mean, when we think about culturally how different people enjoy food, then we have to take those cues from the people who we're eating with. So for sure, if you see your host or hostess picking up food to eat it, it's good to go. And you're kind of right. For the most part, at a Super Bowl party, anything goes, right? Or, well, maybe not right. Is finger licking good still a thing? What do you think? Just had a bunch of wings, good to the very last finger lick and drop. Is it okay to go ahead and lick your fingers when you're having wings? Amber?
So they're not in public, and then a bunch of no's.
Well, actually, the no's have it. Given the environment that we're in, COVID, don't recommend it at all. And again, in the research that I've done, finger licking is probably not a good thing. Use a napkin. And even if you're in a really casual setting, I mean, who wants to be sitting next to somebody who's sucking the last drops of sauce off your fingers? If you want all those little tasty bits of goodness, I recommend using a fork or asking for some to take home. Then you can lick your fingers to your heart's content. But when dining out, it's probably a good idea to use the napkins. For hosts and hostesses, if you're having wings, it's a good idea to make sure that you have lots of extra napkins around. It helps to kind of model that this is what's appropriate. Now, who hasn't been to a buffet, a Super Bowl party where there's tons of dips and chips and things on the table? This, by the way, this display like made me go, wow, where can I get one of those? But what do you do with dips, right? So for the most part, the best advice is use the spoon. And if there's not one already there, add one. Chances are on the table, if you have utensils to be eating food, taking from that buffet or from the tailgate, there's extra spoons there, extra plastic spoons or anything. Do the host or hostess a favor and put a spoon in the dip. So suppose you're looking at that veggie tray and there's no way to get your veggies off of it, and there's really no way to kind of scoop it off onto your plate with a spoon or a fork, then try to work from the outside of the plate in. The chances of you really fingering up a lot of things on the way to getting the pieces that you want is better if you start from that outside edge and work your way in. Double dipping, I don't even have to ask. Hard no, hard don't do it. Now, I will tell you that in some bits of advice that I was reading, they say if you turn the chip around, or if you turn the carrot around or pretzel stick around, you can do that. My advice, don't do it. Chances are somebody's going to see you go in for the second dip and they're going to call you out on it anyway. And whose word against whose word is going to stand up in that argument? Just better to dip once. If you want to take and have dip on your plate, just scoop some on a spoon, put it on your plate, and then you can double dip to your heart's content. Finally, my last little bit of advice. There's nobody, well, there's probably people, but I love a craft beer just as much as anybody else does. Everyone loves to have a good time, but as the host or the hostess, a bit of moderation and setting up your guests for success is helpful. Have a variety of beverages, alcoholic, non-alcoholic, water. Try to mix it up a little bit. If you have guests that you know would prefer that coffee, I'm not an after dinner coffee drinker, but for sure, having that variety is helpful. Making sure that you have food in a variety of locations for guests is helpful too, because if you start to find yourself getting a little bit tipsy and you have those in sight lines, pretzels or chips or things, it's easy to grab those. Model moderation if you're the host or the hostess, and be aware of guests who maybe shouldn't be driving, because nobody wants to host that event that somebody leaves and ends up getting hurt. And finally, and this is for everyone, a bit of advice, etiquette advice. It's a great time to be together with people, and we want to remember all those times. And we're living in an environment when we want to take pictures of everything that's possible. We want to capture those events in the instant. But think before you go and post those things, because it could be your job or a friend's job on the line. So put the phone away, have conversations face to face, put the social media aside if at all possible, and really engage with the people that you're there to be sharing the event with. I'm sure that we will all be looking forward to putting our technology away and getting offline, getting off Zoom, and being able to have those conversations and those fun events again. So with that, I'm going to ask if there's any questions. Throw it back to Amber.
Thank you, Rita. I am not seeing any questions, but I do see a lot of agreement about not double dipping and using spoons and tongs for chips. And then someone even said that they refuse to serve dips because there's too many double dippers in the world, which I found interesting.
There you go.
But yeah, no questions. So thank you so much for that. I could actually use a class on etiquette myself. We are going to move on to our very last presenters for the night. To finish off the night, we're going to go ahead and learn about a cheese dip from Penn State alumni Andrew and Stephanie Weinert. Andrew's a 2009 College of IST grad, and Stephanie is a 2012 College of HHD grad. Stephanie and Andrew met at Penn State in the fall of 2008, which I love a good Penn State love story, so I think that's so cute. They attended grad school together in Boston, and today they live in New York City, where Stephanie is a lawyer and Andrew develops drone safety systems. So as Andrew and Stephanie are sharing, go ahead and post any questions that you might have for them in the Q&A box, and I will try to get to those when they're all finished. So welcome, Andrew and Stephanie.
Hello. Hello. So today we're going to show you from start to finish how you can do a simple, easy cheese dip, but add a Penn State flair to it. And you can choose to think that Penn State flair is exciting and cool, or just gross at the end, as you'll see. So we're going to start here with the raw ingredients. Go to camera 2.
We can start going.
Yeah. So we have just basic salt, cheddar cheese, beer. There we go. New York cheddar cheese, beer, some cornstarch. Often you'll see in cheese dip something for a roux. You'll see in the recipe that simply tossing the chunks of cheese with the cornstarch before heating them up is effectively your roux there. So, it's a shortcut to make your life easier. Some kosher salt, and then for the blue theme, blue butterfly pea supercolor powder. So you don't need to just always get the tiny packs of gel bottles for colors. They do come in powdered form. It's shelf stable. You can have more control, and you'll see what happens here. And then along with our chips.
A nice blue and white variety of chips. So to make our dip, it was very easy actually. We just took I can show you. This is the final product that it'll look like. We just cut up our cheese into chunks, like 1/2-inch squares, tossed that with our cornstarch, and then in a cast iron skillet, you boil the beer, and then you just start adding in the cheese slowly, and eventually it will look something like this.
This one's been cooled off. You can keep it hot in your cast iron, but it looks like a normal, very tasty cheese dip. Highly recommend. It took, maybe 10 minutes,
15 minutes.
15
maybe.
minutes. Homemade. It's not just the queso from a jar. Tastes great. Now this is white. Now we're blue and white, so you can certainly pair with blue corn chips. But what if we wanted to flip the script? What if we wanted a blue dip that's not blue cheese, actually blue, with white chips? And this is where the powder comes in. And say, why would you want to do this? Well, we're stuck inside with COVID, and we need to do some sort of experiments. So first, this is our baby bear. This is very gross looking. This is just a little bit of the powder. It looks pukish. It does not look appetizing.
Would not recommend.
Would not recommend. Here, all right, we're making somewhere. We got some blue. This is 4 ounces of cheese with with a 1/4 tablespoon of this. So just a 1/4, very, very tiny amount will get you that blue. So we're on our way. When we were making this, we thought, okay, yeah, this is gonna be blue. It looks gross. What happens? Well, what if you start adding a lot more blue? You get blue. And here it is, a very vivid blue cheese dip. That's not blue cheese. It is the exact same cheese dip. We just kept adding more and more of the powder, and you can see it. I think it looks striking. Not if there's a positive striking, but it certainly looks striking with the white pita chips. And then if you kind of zoom out, for about 15-20 minutes of our time, we put together something that will go on Instagram, and it's certainly something that will get people talking about. You think about party favors and things. Thank you, Rita.
We got some spoons in our dip when we heard that was appropriate etiquette. So.
And so once again, thanks everybody for attending today. This is certainly the first year of the Cooking Classic, and it's really exciting to see that we have hundreds of people participating and raising thousands of dollars. And so, while we did certainly have fun here with making some blue cheese and driving Steph crazy about why we wanted to do this, seeing the outcome with the engagement and the donations is certainly great. And with that, we'll take questions.
Awesome. That's definitely Instagram worthy, which a lot of people are commenting on that. There are a couple questions though about people want to know if your mouth turns blue when you eat the blue sauce.
I don't know, try
I
it.
don't know. Ask another one while we try this.
That's a lot.
And then they also want to know how much of the powder you added in to get it that dark blue powder or get it that dark blue color.
Yeah. We eyed it.
We eyed it. Andrew says we eyeballed it. He's still chewing. It'd be rude to talk with his mouth full.
We learned that in the etiquette portion.
Let's see. I don't think his tongue is blue. No, very slightly. I bet if he ate the whole thing, it'd probably be blue.
That's good etiquette then.
It's really good etiquette. Does the blue powder impact the taste or anything like that?
Nope. It tastes exactly the same.
Awesome. And it looks like it would definitely pair well with the wings and the beer that we talked about earlier. So thank you so much for sharing your dip with us. I think that will be something that many of us use to take to tailgates. So we're kind of wrapping up on our time and I'm not seeing too many other questions come in. So we just want to, thank everyone for coming tonight. And we hope that you will come for future Cooking Classic events. We are having 2 more after this. And kind of like Andrew mentioned, we are doing this to kind of engage alumni, but the bigger picture really is to raise awareness for the food pantries. So Kim is going to put the link to the fundraising page in the chat again. So if you are able, the students would really appreciate any donation you're able to give. So next week, we hope to see you. The theme for next week is Healthy Hints with the Penn State Extension. So thank you all for joining tonight. And we are